Come and dream with me.
Hello, welcome to this What Do You Want to Watch Spoilercast for not MacGyver, not Vin Diesel, not Stallone, not Schwarzenegger, but you cannot kill David Arquette. I'm your host, Ashley Hobley. Joining me today, Dylan Blight.
Happy to be here to talk about the story of Dewey.
Alright, please be aware we will be freely discussing anything and everything about the plot, themes, and ending of the film, so if you haven't watched it, come back later. It's currently streaming in Australia on Stan. So with that said, let's jump into our discussion of You Cannot Kill David Arquette, directed by David Darg and Price James, starring David Arquette, Christina McLarty Arquette, Courteney Cox, Diamond Dallas Page, Kevin Nash, Luke Perry, Patricia Arquette, Richmond Arquette, Rosanna Arquette, branded as the most hated man in wrestling after winning a highly controversial WCW World Heavyweight Championship in 2000. Actor David Arquette attempts a rocky return to the sport that stalled his promising Hollywood career. Dangerously determined to redeem his reputation and reclaim his self-respect, Arquette will stop at nothing to earn his place in professional wrestling. Dylan, this is a film that we've had on our radar for a while. I can't remember when it actually came up. I think we got a trailer.
Saw a trailer like ages ago, and the only place you could find the trailer was on a Facebook page. Weirdly, it wasn't on YouTube or anything. Like,
yeah,
it was weird.
So it came out last year. Released. Oh yeah, it released at South by Southwest last year. Or it was meant to. I think the trailer came out before then. But yeah, Dylan, what did you think of the documentary?
I liked it. I'll get out my criticism straight away, which is that I like this story. I wanted to know more, and I don't feel like I got enough. Like, I feel like it's just not there's moments that feel semi-raw, but I also don't feel like ultimately this feels as raw as it could have been, and it could have had more, and it would have been so much more engaging. Like, I feel like there's a much better version of this story and movie out there. If you know what I mean. Like, not to say I don't like it. Like, I enjoyed it, but it's just one of those things where I reach the end, I'm like, fuck, I feel like this just isn't quite there. And there's a few other nitpicks I have. So, like, this whole idea of David Arquette, like, being like wrestling fan who, you know, grew up loving it, wants to, you know, gets offered the opportunity to win the heavyweight title at WCW, doesn't really think about how that could negatively impact him. You know, he's just oh fuck yeah, like, I'm a wrestling fan. He's just loving it, and he says yes, and he does it, and the wrestling community fans
turns on him.
Like, all turned on. Yeah, so this whole story of him wanting to not be a mega wrestling star and not go win the heavyweight title at WWE or AEW or like some other promotion, whatever, somewhere. It's not about that. It's just simply about him wanting to prove that
he could have been something.
He can do it, and he's willing to go through the work and the blood, sweat, and tears or whatever to get there. And I think you see that in it. I just don't think you see enough of the rawness of getting. I know there's moments where he's like, you see like where he's like extra stressed out, and then like after there's that scene after Luke Perry dies, and he has the Nick Gage match where he's like, you can tell he's like sort of messed up at that point. But I just feel like we quickly move to the ending of the movie from that point, and I'm like, oh, how do you get past that to actually going back into the ring? You know, like, I don't feel like we have. There's a few points where I feel like it just feels rushed, like it kind of doesn't. I don't feel like narratively I got enough of how did you push through that to get into the ring, and then how are you feeling now? Like, you know, like, I just feel like the ending or the later half of the movie felt more rushed than the start, I guess, is my major criticism for it. And then my other is there's one key scene that kind of annoys me, which is early in the movie, they're in the car with Arquette, and he's talking about how he's like, oh man, my life sucks so much right now. Let alone we're seeing all these scenes of him in these big mansions and all this sort of stuff. He's like, my life sucks so much right now. And look, I don't want to like say that rich. I'll get this out right. If you're rich and you're a celebrity, yes, you can still have mental health problems. You could be like a millionaire and you can still have shitty mental health, and you could be an alcoholic and all this. I'm not saying that. However, he's like, my life sucks right now. I haven't been working at all. It's like going for a job interview for 10 years straight and you're never getting a job. Right. I'm just going to say that is bullshit. And it just sort of annoyed me because you can literally open IMDb and be like, you have been working. You obviously don't like the roles you're getting, but you have been working. So that scene annoyed me a little bit because I'm like, you're getting paid, dude. Like you're working, you're getting paid. You're not the mega movie star. That's fine. If we want to do a documentary where it's, they bring up that whole he was on the cover with all the big other actors. That is interesting. And like, I'm totally down for that. Like, I don't find that to be a super, like, I know maybe other people that would be like, well, just get over it. Like if you didn't make it, be a superstar. But I totally get like if they want to go down the storyline of, like mentally it affects him that he isn't as big as maybe he thought he could have been and whatever else. Like, I'm fine with that being a storyline, but there was just something that rubbed me wrong about that scene because I'm like, it's just sort of blatant lying. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't think it's lying. It's just,
it's just the way he views it.
It's from his perspective, he very much believes.
I know. But that was like the most...
It's obviously a disconnect between,
Yeah.
And I feel like that could potentially be a disconnect in general. Is like, why are you going and nearly killing yourself when you've got this beautiful family and this massive house, and a number of safer options that you could be doing.
Yeah, well, I get that to a degree because I get how maybe he just wants to prove himself, and I get maybe he's haunted by these memories. But yeah, just the whole I haven't been working. You have like monetary wise and whatever else. You're okay. So let's just start with that sort of thing. But yeah, otherwise I thought it's a good documentary. Like I'd probably give it a 7. Like if you're asking, I know I'm kind of sound like I'm shitting on it, but it's only because I like there's a lot here I like, and I just wish it was molded better to be much higher. But I'd probably give it a 7. For the most part, I really enjoy it. I like David Arquette as a person. I respect that he. that he went for all this, and I feel like there's enough in here to prove if the main point of the documentary is to prove that he would do it, or like he would go for it or whatever. Like I feel like he went out and proved himself. Like by the time you get to the end of the doco and it's like David Arquette was ranked in the top 500 wrestlers for 2019 in PWI Insider. Like that's a pretty cool factor. I know it's 500, but there's a fucking lot of wrestlers out there. So let's, it's something. So yeah, the end scene hits home with the Luke Perry thing and the Jungle Boy moment and all that sort of stuff. Like, you hear him like sort of croak up in his voice as he's saying like, I loved your father and I love you too and all that sort of stuff. So I feel like there is heart here. And then on the other side, I enjoyed seeing more of the, I guess for people who aren't wrestling fans who maybe watch this because they're a David Arquette fan, which I'm sure that's an audience as well. They're like, he's wrestling fucking crazy. What happened to Arquette? I used to love him in insert movie Scream, I guess. There's going to be a lot of interesting stuff in here for people watching this who only have ever seen like WWF, WWE, because it's like, obviously it focuses a lot more on proper indie shit, like backyard wrestling, lucha libre stuff, like, and then eventually he moves up into some more of like the, I can't remember what show. It's like GCW shows there, obviously, and maybe like Beyond Wrestling and all that. I don't know, a couple other indie promotions and stuff like that. So yeah, I enjoy seeing that side of it, and it's not the glitz glamour side of wrestling that most people who don't actually watch anything other than WWE, I guess, see, or like the people who don't even watch wrestling, they just think WWE. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, what do you think? Because I've been yapping.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I think you're right. There could have been the potential for this to be like a mini series or something. Like even if they're half hour episodes or something, it would have been interesting to like delve in deeper on obviously him winning the world championship, and then maybe more history on his family background and that kind of stuff. A lot of this is kind of lightly touched on and that kind of stuff. You do get a just decent chunk of him training up, leading up to his first proper match, I guess. But then after that, it's like cut. Quick montage of him wrestling for the next few months. I would have liked to have had more build up to the Gage match, like some context, especially for the viewers as to who Nick Gage is and what. Like, did David Arquette know what he was getting into?
Yeah, I got more context. So after, because obviously recently they had the Dark Side of the Ring episode with Nick Gage, and in that they give more context because at least in that, like that whole episode isn't focused on this match. It's 45-minute episode TV show, but I still found time to give more exposure for this match, which is that apparently Arquette or someone asked about it, or his people or his friend or whatever that was helping him like organize this stuff, like or something like that, and then Nick Gage actually went out to dinner with Arquette like the week prior and discussed everything and was like, it's a death match. Are you cool with that? And Arquette was like, yeah, just don't cut my face because I'm an actor and all this sort of shit and whatever else. So it is weird that in this, they just sort of do a weird thing where they're like, this is like this big, epic, emotional moment where he nearly dies. So we're going to choose to not have any commentary or explanation of then this dramatic music. And we're just kind of going to let it play.
Itself,
yeah. Which
works.
Work. They need a little bit more setup though. Like they just needed a scene
context,
prior to set the stage.
Yeah. There's other odd things about the documentary. Like obviously they open up with like Ken Anderson, and then you don't see or have any context until the very, very end of the film. They open with Ric Flair with a interview.
One interview in the entire fucking
That's
thing.
it. Never see him again.
Any time you see him.
You know, you see him talking to David Arquette in the credits. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's some other odd Vox like interviews. It's like, what were they talking to Ric Flair about other than that?
After that. Yeah.
It's like they just used an excuse to like talk to him. It's like, we got our David Arquette bit out, and now we're going to talk to Ric Flair for like an hour.
They're filming it
about whatever we want.
Secret Ric Flair documentary at the same time. I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah. Very brutal and bloody. So that backyard wrestling, that's some messed up shit. I wonder how much Arquette knew about that.
Nothing. That was like proper like hashtag Jim Cornette would hate that shit, like mud show, backyard wrestling. That was just yeah. But it was also good because, I mean, that's how the majority of today's wrestlers grew up or got started wrestling. Like, if you ever hear interviews with the majority of, I'm not saying all, but the majority of wrestlers, like, what'd you do when you was little? Oh, backyard wrestling, or whatever. What was you doing when you was a teenager? Like, backyard wrestling, all this sort of shit. And there's always, like, dodgy setups and whatever else. They've got, like, this secondhand fucking ring that's falling apart or whatever else.
Doesn't have missing bits and pieces. Falls apart halfway through the event.
It's like proper shit. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I would have liked a few more interviews and maybe even more of a look into what his current life looks like and that kind of stuff before he started wrestling. Obviously, you touch on stuff, but you never ever dive deep into any of it. Like he just briefly discusses like his different mental health problems. Obviously, there's that scene where he's get put on ketamine, which was difficult to watch. Like him like rambling on, like completely off high or whatever. I don't know whether it makes you high.
It's off his face. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's high in life,
Yeah, and then sure, you have these small interviews with members of his family, but it's like snap, and then you never see him again for the rest of the film, except for an Ellen interview. Odd choices. Yeah. I think I just would have liked to see more. I think
I feel like my thing is, I'm like, is the documentary focused on David Arquette and it's supposed to give us an insight to him as a person, his backstory as a person, his like family and all that sort of stuff, or was the main focus on the wrestling? Because it tries to do both, and I don't feel like it has enough interviews for either side to really fulfill either. Like, if you're someone that's looking for more of an insight on David Arquette as a person, I don't feel like you get enough. And if you're looking for more insight on like the indie wrestling and the training and the people involved in the indie wrestling that he was spending a lot of, because there's a core group of people he was spending a lot of time like talking to and traveling with, and he bumped into a lot. And I'm forgetting the dude's name, but the one he like had that match against, and he teams up RJC. Like he teams up, like it's like, where's the interview of RJC? There wasn't one. You know what I mean? Like there's just weird things where I'm like, okay, what's the focus really? I don't feel like you're fulfilled in either market.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because obviously I assume when they started, they came up, pitched the project. It was David Arquette wanting to get back into wrestling. And then, you know, the events unfolded how they did. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's enjoyable. I think they kind of shoehorned the Miss Elizabeth thing in. Like, it was like very heavily foreshadowed. It didn't quite work. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it was a good time. Fun 90 minutes. Nice, and it was a tight 90 minutes, you know?
Yeah.
Too tight.
It's enjoyable. It's enjoyable. Just all my complaints are because I want something better.
Aimed at a more mainstream audience than a hardcore wrestling fan, or someone who wants to know more about David Arquette. I
feel like it's aimed at David Arquette fans more so than wrestling fans.
Yes,
which, but it's like for the people who are both. Which I guess I would say I'm a sort of both camp. That's maybe why I'm sort of unfulfilled to a degree. You know, like just got a little bit of
more questions.
Yeah, more questions.
All right, let us know what you thought of You Cannot Kill David Arquette by going to explosion.com/Twitter. You can forward our Twitter handles over there, or you can jump into Discord at explosion.com/Discord. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or on Podchaser or on Twitter. And if you like this episode and thought it was worth $1, head on over to our Ko-fi page at explosion.com/support and buy us a coffee. Thank you very much for listening. And until next time, keep watching stuff, I guess. Do you know that song, You Cannot Kill David Arquette, came out in 2009?
You cannot kill David Arquette.
It's like a decade old. I thought it was like specially made for this. No.
Nope.